Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. Well, my intent today is to use all this equipment that I've been building over the past week to sharpen the blade for my number 8 plane. The back of the tool rest is square to the wheel. Now, it really doesn't matter if it's square to the wheel. It just happens to be square to the wheel. What I'm looking at is this line is straight. As long as the piece that I'm grinding is running parallel to this edge, it's going to track across that wheel. It's going to hit the highest point on the wheel, whatever point that may be. Maybe on this side one time, maybe on that side the other time. In this case, I take the number 8, turn the cap iron 90 degrees to the blade, and have it run along the back edge. That causes the front edge of the blade to track a line across the wheel. That's going to make this edge always the same distance from this edge on both sides. Just a way to make the blade 90 degrees to the sides. The easiest way for me to check that is to use a square. By holding a square on the cap iron and running it up against the edge of the blade, I can ring the blade exactly 90 degrees to the edge of the cap iron. Now, does it matter if this edge is not parallel to that edge? Nope. All I need is a straight line here. If this edge is 90 degrees to that line, then when I grind it, this blade edge is going to be parallel to that line and perpendicular to the side. Now, why is that important? There's always lateral adjustment on a plane, right? No. Some planes have it, some planes don't. In this particular instance, the number 8 actually does have lateral adjustment. But it's an adjustment. It's not meant to correct everything. It's not meant to take a badly ground blade and make it so it works. It lets you square up the blade to the sole of the plane. You're not trying to fix a bad blade. So we want to get this as close as we can. We actually want to have everything as close as we can. The sole, the frog, the blade, the cap iron, everything. This is an easy way to make sure that the blade is 90 degrees. If you have the blade 90 degrees and you bring everything else in square with the blade, your plane's going to work better. So, what happens if you don't have a machinist square? Well, I happen to have one, but any square will do. You can use, this is an 8-inch Stanley square, and it was made in the 60s. It's not an antique, it's just one that looks like an antique. It's a reproduction. Now, this is made in the early 19th century. This is in Miller Falls. Will it work? Yep, same deal. Square it up. You can even just use a triangle of, a 90-degree triangle that you have laying around. Anything that lets you put this 90 degrees to that edge. I hope I've explained that pretty well. I have it squared up. Now I want to tighten this. How tight should I take it? Well, if it moves, you got to tighten it more. After you tighten it, make sure you check square. Things move on you. Now, we're going to try our tool rest for the very first time. I also bolted down the seat, so hopefully it'll get rid of some of the wobble that I was experiencing. It makes it very difficult to try and hold the plane blade straight without a tool rest and having the whole grinder and yourself wobbling in opposite directions most of the time. I also put a towel down on the floor because we're going to drip some water. I have to smear some water around on the stone. I want to have the whole surface of the stone wet. Now, is there a reason that I'm doing the whole surface of the stone, making sure that the whole surface of the stone is wet? I don't see any reason not to. There. And it makes it so that it's a little bit more controllable for me. Now I've set this tool rest so that it's going to give me a 30-degree angle on the edge of the blade. I'm thinking if I make an error, it's going to go a little bit flatter more than a little bit more steep. But that's just a theory at this point. We'll know better in a few minutes. One thing's certain, the on-off switch on this grinder is pretty darn specific. When I stop pedaling, it stops turning. Now we're working. A little more water. Definitely need to fix that seat. That seat is a major pain. And running not quite parallel. I'm running not quite 90 degrees. I'm a little shy on this edge. I think the tool rest needs to be wider if this is going to work. Because what's happening, when I get over here, I lose my lock on the tool rest and this starts wobbling. And it tends to go in a little further. Because if I turn it, I shorten the distance between the back and that edge. Mostly because there's this break right here. I might have to come up with a different way of doing this. I originally came up with this idea when I was sharpening blades on this grinder. By locking the blade down at a set distance This tool rest is a lot wider. I engage a lot more of it as I'm going across the wheel. Also, this tool rest is shorter. So a shorter tool rest means that I'm going to have less of movement if I have a little bit of wobble in it. This worked. I ended up with a good bevel on the edge. Now this blade was ground to like a 20-degree angle, so I'm not taking a full bevel on it. I'll come back and do that another time when I need to sharpen it again. But I can't see any point in taking off a lot more steel on the blade than I need to. You only get one blade. Well, you can buy more, but you only get one blade with the plane. And if you take it all away by sharpening it the first time, next time you go to sharpen it, you're going to be up in the soft steel. If this were a laminated blade, it would be more important to take off less steel, because you get to a point on a laminated blade where you actually run out of tool steel and end up with just plain old mild steel. Any of them that had a laminated blade in that you see them ground almost to the hole, they're long past the point where they had any tool steel left in them. So now I can go up to the hand stones, take it across the water stones and give it a final cleaning. Flatten this back just a little bit more. I've done most of it already. Flatten this back a little bit more, knock the burr off, and square up this edge, polish it up a bit. I think we should have a good running plane. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.